Allow me to introduce myself quickly. So my name is Puneet Kataria. I'm the founder of Customer Success Box. Many of you have probably heard about Customer Success Box and have been seeing some emails or maybe our LinkedIn little conversations and videos floating around there. So it's such a pleasure to meet you all. And so this particular format that we're going to use today is going to be more like a typical webinar format where we speak, but we want to keep it as two-way as possible. So this is, so I'm constantly watching the chat on the side window that I have here. So we will keep this as interactive as we can. Sai Bharat, thanks. You're joining from Global Apps. Zita, you're joining from Clearly Rated. Thank you. We have Anu joining us as well. Anu, thanks for joining. Anu, you want to do a quick introduction?
Hi, I am Anu. I head Customer Success at Customer Success Box. And so pleased to join you on the webinar here.
Yeah, but I would like to chip in and say a little more about Anu. She has been, voted as one of the top success leaders globally by Success Coaching. So that goes to her.
Thank you, Swagata.
And Swagata, thank you so much for making this happen. And so, without further ado, let's dive into the topic. So, yes. as I mentioned, let's just keep this as interactive as we can. And Swagata, if you can also watch the chat for us, and in case Anu and I are too deep into doing just our chat, just make sure you stop us and then make sure this interactive. The session is interactive with everybody.
Yeah. I'll ensure that the session remains interactive, and I'll request all of the attendees to keep the questions flowing in.
Lovely. Questions, comments, thumbs up, thumbs down. If both agreements, disagreement. The idea is not just to share what we know, but also learn from all of you. And with that, let's dive in. So today, what we really want to talk about, of course, how do we do churn analysis? Now, a lot of times, I think, the conversations which happen around churn are, how do you stop churn? How do you reduce churn? How do you improve retention? Nobody really talks about diving deeper into churn itself. It is, I don't know whether it's like a tabooed subject, and that is why nobody wants to talk about it. But I think before we can even get to solving the problem, it is very important for us to understand what we are really fighting here. Unless we deeply understand churn, then we are simply not going to solve it. So the entire agenda today is all going to be about churn analysis. So we're going to start the conversation. It'll start by churn analysis. Why do we do churn analysis? What is the reasons why you should be doing churn analysis? And then the meat of the entire there are two meaty sections of this entire webinar. Number one is an internal framework that we have developed over the years. It's a very simple framework. So it's, think of it as a very, very simple process. So you don't have to worry about that it's going to be very complex. It has taken us years and stuff. It's very simple. You can go back tomorrow and start apply it. I hope none of you have any churns at all. But, whenever you do encounter that unfortunate incident, then you can definitely use it and see what we can get out of that churn. So it's a simple framework. It's called FAIR, and we'll dive into it when we get there. And then what do we do post churn analysis? This is the meaty part. And then just to make sure that we are leaving you with something that you can really apply, we will be showing at least one or two examples here of how we follow this FAIR framework within Customer Success Box itself. And there, we are obviously, showing some dummy data and stuff, but we will sort of try to give you a glimpse into this, and hopefully that'll come in handy and provoke more conversations and questions. And of course, discussions and Q&A, we will like to take them if they are sort of within the context of what we are speaking as we are going with the flow. Or if it is slightly outside the topic or something, we prefer parking, then we might just choose to park some of those questions, and we will come back and address them at a more appropriate or towards the end of this conversation. With that done, let's get into it. So Anu, let me start by asking you why do you think we should do churn analysis before I share my thoughts?
Okay. So I would want to share a very different analogy here, Puneet. It's like probably taking the example of why people die. It's like, yes, everybody dies one day, but all our infrastructure is created, I think, right from our health to education to make sure that we live longer. So I think the same can be applied for the churn, that any company, if all our customers are going to die one day, but all we as a customer success team wants to do is create more infrastructure and prolong that event for a very very long time. And if we can find out why people why customers churn, then we can also use that more in our own processes. So to make sure that we have we have a strong process, and we can use that to make sure that customers stay with us longer.
Yeah, and so I think that was a very loaded loaded example, I must say. And then given the times that we live in, I will not dig into that example any further than what we need to. But yes, I think life has a cycle. Having said that, I think as long as it is meaningful, the customers should stay. As long as we are delivering value, the customers should stay, and there is no reason why the customers cannot continue to get value literally forever. We've all been customers of one service, at least in a B2C life, or even as a B2B, for pretty much as long as we exist. I'll give you a very simple B2C example to start with. I think there is always some content service, whether it is Netflix or Spotify or an Amazon. And yes, there are alternatives which are emerging, and we might as given the situation, want to have more and more of content. On the other hand, if I take a B2B example, whoever is your email provider, you're likely to stick with them for a very very long time. Such is the nature of the beast. Although we've all seen people moving out of some of the more traditional old age, like IBM. I'm even forgetting the name. IBM used to have like a mega email servers and whatnot, or BlackBerries of the world. So yes, people do move out to better alternatives as the tech changes. But those, I think, tech changes are happen over a very long period. So the churn that we are talking about is not the fundamental tech changes, but the churn that happens that potentially can be stopped, or at least that's the goal of customer success managers. That is the objective why we even are here. So if churn happens, why do we need to do analysis? I think this is the starting position for us. And let me, this is how I'll put it. Why do we want to understand churn? Because only when we understand the reasons behind churn, only when we understand the beast, the monster, very very deeply, only when we have a very clear understanding of why customers churn and also why customers stay. Because when you're doing churn analysis, you will not just learn about why customers are leaving, you will also learn very deeply about why customers stay. Have you found yourself ever wondering, okay, I want to train these customers, but you're always scratching your head, which are the top 3 modules, which are the top 5 modules that I should train my customer on? Because we all have that tendency. I've got 20 modules. I want to train all my customers on all 20 modules. And that, by the way, could be very overwhelming for a lot of customers. And I'm sure a lot of you have learned that. But do let me know if you feel that. And there, so this, whenever you're analyzing churn, you're automatically going to learn 2 things: why customers leave you and why customers stay. It'll be very revealing, when we get into that. But once we do understand churn, immediately after that, we can categorize it. Now, when I say categorization, before even I talk about categorization, let me sort of step back and talk about, our roles one more time. Whose responsibility is to stop churn or reduce churn or increase retention, however you want to call it? Do you think this is the responsibility of customer success managers? Any comments there? I'm looking for that. In fact, Swagata, can you run a poll there for me?
Sure.
Whose responsibility is to stop or reduce churn? Number one, CSMs. Number two, onboarding managers. Number three, maybe renewal managers, if you have those. And number four, the entire organizations. And while the poll is gonna hit your chat in a minute, I'm reading your comments. It's overall company. Zita says that. It's the entire organization. That's Rajat. Jaya says it's a mixture of product, innovation, CSM. Interesting. Parvez, everyone in the company. Maharajan says whole company plays a crucial role in each stage with customer. Yes, you're spot on. And like it's well articulated. Sai Bharat says, excuse me, primarily CSMs, but the organization's wide task. Suman says CSM, overall organization. I think majority of you've got it right, and I'll still wait. Whenever Swagata runs that poll out, and we'd love to see it in numbers, which option you choose. But the option that I will go with is going to be churn is not just the responsibility of the customer success manager. It is interestingly the responsibility of the entire organization. And let me explain that a little bit in more detail, and why do I say so? See, you are definitely the face of the organization, of your business, of your SaaS company in front of the customer. You are the one post-sales with the customer, ensuring what? Ensuring that the customer is able to get to value. See, there are three stages, okay? When marketing is, let's say, talking about a product, they're making what I call a value promise. So they're making a promise of a value that if you purchase a product, this is the value that you're going to get. But then sales comes in. What is sales doing? Sales is doing, oops, sorry about that, guys. Sales is doing what I call, I'm just going to put myself on do not disturb here. Okay. So sales is doing what I call a value demonstration, right? Sometimes you may even do a POC, but it's sort of a value demonstration. Customer success is responsible for value delivery. And those outcomes, as we all are very popularly known as, they're called value realization. When the customer finally says, yeah, I've got it, that's value realization. So it is customer success manager's job to make sure the value is delivered. But is customer success manager alone delivering the value? Don't you really need like a kick-ass product to deliver the value at the first place? That's one. But that technology being technology, don't you think that product is going to break from, time and again? That means you will need a kick-ass product support team as well, while you are ensuring that the customer is able to get to the use case. Yes, even that is going to be required. You need an awesome engineering to take all the feedback, and awesome product managers to take all the feedback and innovate and whatnot. And you are packaging all of that and making sure that the customer is able to navigate through the product and get to that value. And sometimes there might be rough edges in the product itself that you all need to do, that you all need to, handhold your customer. Product will eventually catch up. Eventually, there is a dream of, just like every organization can say in an ideal world, I don't need any salesperson, right? Because my product is so great, the value is so obvious that nobody, we don't need sales. That ideal world does not exist. Similarly, no matter how awesome your product is, there will always be some sort of a hand-holding that you require, especially for products which are solving a lot more complex problems, if the nature of the problem is huge. So customer success manager's role is very important, is very, very relevant, is always going to be there. I'm not saying that one can get to delivering value, or one can get to value without customer success managers, but customer success managers are necessary but not sufficient, if that makes sense. So it is absolutely the responsibility of the entire organization, and all of them play a very, very, very important role. And you will exactly see this when you're going to sit down and analyze churn. You are going to see that, hold on, why are we trying to save this customer? Because this guy is not even supposed to be our customer to start with. Have you ever encountered a problem where a customer leaves, or when they ask for either they ask for certain use cases to be solved, and you're wondering, we never solved this use case for anyone. That's not even our product pitch. Why are you even a customer? Right? So that means we brought in the wrong customer. Is it a wrong pitch, or the sales needs a training? And there is more stories to it. Time permitting, I'll come to it. HubSpot did a very good analysis, and they realized that there were certain sales guys who were bringing in customers of a different quality, or not quality, or of a different who were not ideal customers. And once they moved their sales on recurring revenue quotas, like they were only getting paid if the customer renews, that is when, and they of course trained their sales team and all of that stuff, that is when their churn actually stopped or got reduced. I will not say. This is a published case study by HubSpot, I think many years ago, probably long before they went public. So it could be wrong customers. It could be a product limitation itself. The customer is ready to move to let's say the next level. Let's say you are a product which is brilliantly successful in, let's say, SMB market, and everybody with, let's say, 100 employee organization just loves you and goes by it and amazing and whatnot. But as they go past 100, as they sort of naturally increase the size of the organization, your product might not be built for enterprise needs to start with. And at some stage, some might go all the way to 200, some might go all the way to even 500. Some might even stick around, very few might even stick around to being 1,000, but eventually, if that is not your ideal market, that means the product and market has a mismatch. Eventually they will churn. So are there product limitations? Or there could be natural product limitations, that there is a certain use case that the customer absolutely wants to solve, and simply it's not possible. Those might be, now there's nothing that you can do about it. You can definitely talk about that. You can make a case internally. You can work with the management to give you some sort of a deadline, some sort of okay, this is going to come this quarter or next year. Try to hold on to the customer. You should absolutely do that. But if that is the reality and your customer cannot live without that, then that is the reality as well. Poor adoption. That means you have the product which delivers value, meets and can deliver exactly what needs to be done, but the customer is simply not able to adopt that part of the module, that part of the product. They're not getting value. If they're not going to adopt the product, they're not getting value, and that could be because of like a million reasons. We'll talk about it as we move forward. And these could be those challenges. And this, I think, is a prime example of what customer success managers should own. And of course, the needs of the customer could have changed altogether. And all of these could be, different categories. These are examples of different categories of churn, which are very, very interesting for you to see. Only when you get to understand churn, that is when you will know why churn is happening. And if it is, for example, let's say a product limitation, then you can go back to the management and say, hey, we lost 10 customers last year, measuring up to, let's say $500,000 or $20,000 or 10% of my portfolio because of this one feature. There you go. That's your best compelling case for all these years or all these quarters you were asking for that particular feature. Now you finally have the data point, which is going to make that management, commit to that feature. So that's, I think, a wonderful example of why understanding churn and categorizing churn will be very, very useful. Anu, you want to come in any of this? Otherwise, I'll move to number 2.
You are absolutely right, Puneet. I think it's the mixture of so many things that leads a kind of a churn, and it is very important to analyze so that we can kind of stop our mistakes, which not just customer success team. It's the angle of product marketing and probably the use cases that we best solve. Our marketing is not showing those use cases. Or
Oh, yeah.
in the other hand, marketing is showing something which is not at all possible in the product. So customer might be purchasing
Well,
specifically that I might get this, but when they comes in, then implementation and customers says just, okay, it might just taking more 3 months and 6 months, and that's where their motivation drops.
right.
So it's just the factor. There are too many factors that are linked, and it's very crucial to analyze each one of them and try to eliminate. I think elimination is the strategy here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, I used to think that, some of those really wide gaps between what marketing is saying, what sales is promising, or what the product can do, or what engineering is built, and what, the customer success manager has been tasked or faces as a challenge, was only probably, very early stage companies face those problems. But interestingly, you'll be surprised to know that even over the years, as the same product, probably, goes through multiple product managers, goes through multiple management, goes through multiple influential customers, right, can steer itself and in a certain direction where it has sort of moved away from some of the original promises, and probably hopefully in a good way in a certain direction as well. So this problem, watch out for all of these issues. Even if you're in a larger organization, it never hurts to pass the feedback whenever you smell something which might be out of place. So let's continue from there. Now, once I've categorized churn, what can I do with it? Immediately, I know if it's product limitation, I know what I have to do. I have a strategy for it. If it's poor product adoption, I can drive, education and training. What do I want to educate? What do I want to train on? What are the right modules? All of that stuff. You can sit down, decide, put a playbook together, put an entire plan together, put a certification together, put, a whole bunch of things. Once you know what is the problem, you know how to solve it. Your use case focus can be there. Okay, they're adopting the product, but they're still saying they're not getting this X value because they're not getting an X outcome. And that can be a use case problem, and we'll see if we can address that and want to check that out and as an example as we go down the webinar. Somebody saying, hey, the retention strategy could be that the management itself is getting visibility of the churn, so that they can act accordingly, they can bring the right leadership, they can invest in the right areas, product improvements, hand-holding the customer. Maybe even if the problems are, if your product serves a very large number of customers. So for example, if you're in HR tech, which touches all employees, then that means you've got a very, very large user base, and probably you reach out to all those. You work very closely with the admins or maybe some people in the HR team, but your product touches a whole bunch of the entire organization, and that means you may want to use some sort of an automated communication, intervention, education with a larger team, and that could be one of those strategies. So essentially, once you've categorized the problem, once you understand why people are churning and put them into categories, there are ways you can think about strategies, and not just strategies, but you'll also know the owners of those strategies, because all these categories will not be owned by customer success managers, and only together as a team you will be able to win. And obviously, when all this falls in place, that is when you get to the nirvana of 125% MRR retention or net dollar retention, whatever you want to call it. Anu, you want to add something? I'm going to quickly.
So I think even though it takes like entire village to make this successful, but because I think CSM are at the forefront, it's their responsibility to pass those feedbacks to the respective teams and make sure then that they take actions on all those things, that it be marketing, sales. But I think since CSMs are the ones who are facing this, their KPIs probably are on the are linked to the churn and retention. So it becomes their responsibility to pass on these feedbacks to the respective teams.
Lovely. So with that done, and let's go ahead and now look at. Do we have that poll out? We don't, right? Swagata, you were able to.
No, Puneet, there's certain technical glitches as my end. Once this is done, I'll get it in. Yeah.
Okay, then never mind. All right, cool. So let's continue, and as promised, I think this is the most meaty part, what we call the FAIR framework. Now, when churn happens, these are the 4 key steps we recommend that you take to do a thorough churn analysis. Each account individually should be picked up as and when it happens. You can, usually within the same week. But if you have a large volume, like if you are a high volume customer organization, then it may make sense to set up like a fixed time every fortnight, twice a month, or even once a week, to sit down and do churn analysis of each of those pieces. And I'll touch upon the high volume as we go along. But right now, I'm assuming that you guys probably face a handful of churns every quarter, and that means every customer is very important, and you should do this exercise internally. Now, the FAIR frameworks, the step one is feedback. What feedback? Sorry, that's not had. This is supposed to be what. So, what feedback have you been receiving? Now, what I mean by this is customers don't churn overnight. Customers, especially in the B2B world, they're simply not just going to vanish. They will work with you. They'll try to see. Ultimately, they've gone through a lot of. They have a pain. They went through a lot of evaluation, looking at so many other alternatives. They looked at your technology, finally got excited about what you're offering, invested in your product, got excited about it, tried to utilize it, maybe did a few more steps, even onboarded, and then eventually, if they do decide to leave, they're not going to leave without giving it a fight. As long as you want to hold on to them, every customer also wants to stick to your product, because the pain of switching is still high, no matter how much automation and everything else is around, because there's going to be a lot of uphill tasks to learn new technology, find another alternative, move the data, retrain the team, and also announce that, oh, our first choice did not work out, and going through all those motions. This is like, it is not a few hours worth of effort. It usually is at least a few weeks is what people think, but it ends up being a few months even before the next platform can sort of come into a full practice. So they don't want to leave you. That means they would have given you lots and lots of hints that, hey, I like this, but I'm not getting this part. Can you do something about this use case? There will always be some feedback that they will continue to drop throughout their life cycle. And I think before you speak to any customer, you should look at all the feedback that you've received from that customer. Of course, the more recent one is more important, but analyze at least the last year, the entire full year is what I will suggest, because you might find patterns within the feedback itself, and it can come in from variety of channels. It can come in, and you'll usually see the same feedback coming from multiple touch points, multiple channels. It can come in from your support. The same feedback you'll see coming from coming in QBRs, even especially when it gets bubbled up to management and management's concerned. You will see the same feedback coming in different internal feedback calls or feature requests and all those forms and shapes, and you should be able to see a pattern. That I think is the first analysis. There will also be a feedback which will typically come along, basically giving you a reason and thanking you that, hey, maybe you helped us, but it did not work out. But for these reasons, we've decided to cancel the account. Those reasons I've, in my experience, and would love to learn from you guys. In my experience, are usually very formal. The most recent reasons, when they are shared formally with you as feedback, that these are the 2 or 3 reasons that we have, those I've seen usually more formal reasons and don't necessarily have the depth to them. But what you would have seen over the previous months and quarters will usually have that piece. Anu, you want to add something to feedback?
I agree with you, Puneet. With every interaction, customer gives us feedback directly or indirectly. Directly, it's just that I think our persistence to hear them and then try to solve their problems. If you're not with the product, at least with some workarounds where they feel comfortable. Yeah.
Got it. And once we have got the feedback, okay, so we have reviewed. So this is subjective. We read text here, literally. After that, we move to all data analytics. So that is what the A stands for. So A stands for analytics, and basically what we mean is analyze the data. You can also call it for analyze, but primarily what you are analyzing here, and you're really digging deep into product adoption. Now, when I say really digging deep, I'm not talking about out of the 10 seats, how many seats were getting utilized? Was it 9 or 8? Not just that is a very surface level, analysis. You have to go a lot deeper. Your product typically will have multiple modules. So let's say if you were a CRM, you will have different modules of leads, of opportunity, of reporting, of dashboarding, of data import, data export, user management, whole bunch of things. You know which of those modules have the maximum value packed in them. And those you need to go module by module. What module was actually adopted? How many people were actually using that module? For how long was it adopted? Was it getting continuously used or not? And then within module, which features were getting used? If you know especially which features are more important than the others, then it becomes even more critical for you to analyze those. And this is going to be very, very data, take a lens and look at all the data, sort of an angle. And you want to look at that data literally for at least 1 year, if not 1 year, at least for the last 90 days is what we will say. And you will see significant, gigantic, sort of literally data will never lie. While everything else, which is coming from, when you're asking humans, there will always be a certain bias, there will be certain personality traits which will always show in, but data never lies. And this is the ultimate truth, which is very, very comparable. And I think you should certainly not ignore it. And data is not just limited to product adoption, but you should also analyze data in how many support tickets you've been getting. What was the volume like? Are there any open support tickets? So the service quality. Then you also want to look at even financial data. Were there invoices which are overdue? And when were you able to see that pattern? Were their credit cards expired, or they'd removed the card from file and things like those. You also want to look at even engagement data. Were they showing up on QBRs, or were they missing QBRs? All that adds up to this analytics and analysis of the data. And frankly, within these two, even before you've spoken to the customer, you would have seen, okay, this was the pattern which led to this churn. So feedback, looking at the data, especially product telemetry, this is analytics. And we'll talk about what tools you can use, and we'll talk about that. It's not a very tool focused, but we'll give you an example and probably we can touch there. The third and the most important one is the interview. Anu, you want to talk about the interview and the importance of interview?
Yeah, I think this interview part is especially important when it has been taken by CSMs itself. Like once you sort of come to an agreement that we'll be parting ways, then they don't have any excessive compulsion on being nice to you. Sometimes we can just put our guards down and just can ask for an help that, okay, what we could have done better in order to make sure that you stay with us for longer, or what were the important of putting in the entire process. So I think and one-on-one, at least a 30-minute interview with the sponsorer and the champion who was leading your implementation from customer side can give you the analysis, or can give you few things at such a higher level that it will be like tons of research at one end, and the honest feedback, or honestly telling few things about your own product and processes is like much higher. I think I'll count those feedbacks which is coming after the churn has happened, okay, are more important than even when they were staying with us.
Yeah, exactly. I know I can't stress enough. So while Anu said that a CSM should take this interview, I definitely insist it should be preferably with the champion, because while they might have decided to move on from your product, but the champion still is your champion and will provide you the inside information and or sponsorer. But both these, if you're doing two of them, then try to take two interviews rather than one, if you really want the in-depth analysis, and then try to essentially make it one-to-one. And the best person to take them is the person who owns that relationship, or who has the best relationship. Sometimes the sponsorer might have the best relationship with the sales guy who actually sold the product, while the champion might have the better relationship with the CSM. So those are some of the tricks that you can use so that this interview goes well. And generally, the language that I will personally use in such interviews, if I have to do those, will be what can we learn from your experience? What can you give us as feedback so that we don't make that mistake again? And if you are being very genuine in what you want to know and learn and help at least the rest of the customers, so that you help them better and you deliver more value to them, I think every customer will be more than happy to sort of share and open their hearts out to give you a very, very positive feedback. And they absolutely wish you well, because ultimately they were one of your investors as a customer. They did invest in you. Now, have any one of you taken any interviews? Would love to learn. Any of you, if you want to share your interview experiences, or how difficult or easy it has been for you to sort of know or understand. For you to have your customers open up on interviews. And have you ever been surprised by the answer? It's like, oh, I never thought this was the main reason, sort of a thing, where you were probably, looking at the usual suspects and comes out, oh, actually, it was nothing like that. But, there was a new management change, and then decided to, switch the new VP decided to, move the entire platform to another person because they have that relationship. And all of these things can happen, and they do happen.
Puneet, we have a lovely answer from Zita. She says that I had a one-on-one with the champion and gave us some great competitor feedback and expectations for what we could face in the future.
Wow. Yeah, that's probably, even more than what you asked for while you were. So not just you're going to get, why they are sort of leaving you as a customer, but they also sort of explain to you where they are switching and why. So now the gap between you and the competitors, which is compelling enough for them to actually make that switch, is in front of you in black and white. And of course, this is gold mine.
Yeah, even Manoj says that it's challenging to get an interview with a tech touch or a medium touch customers, but high touch customers almost always provide a specific reason or a set of reason why the product didn't work for them. What's been challenging is lack of adoption.
Adoption.
COVID, and that being the reason for churn. Can you speak a bit more about how to tackle that?
Got it. So a little bit, probably, Manoj, I'll try to touch upon, but the topic today is not about reducing churn or tackling churn. That we will talk about in one of the future webinars. So just bear with us. We'll try to stay on course as much as we can. But Zita, I think that was a great example. So thanks for sharing, and thanks, Manoj, for understanding. But Manoj, to your one point, where you're saying, interviews work great and customers open up if it's a high touch customer, you'll be very surprised that low touch customers also open up. But the problem, is that low touch customers just never get touched at all, especially not after churn. They end up being a number in analytics. All right. While for when you're building a product which is for high volume, and low ARPA customers, it makes sense to look at analytics, and that's how your product direction should be there. But while you cannot interview all your churns there, if it's again a high volume business that you guys are in, you should absolutely take a sample from them, and let's say every month, I will interview at least 10% or 5% or even 2% of my customers, and that itself will be good enough if you choose that sample either randomly or just very, very wisely. That will be very interesting. And sometimes you can even run surveys if you want to run at a wide level. But again, surveys are not as good as interviews. Surveys they give you a macro view, but they never give you very, very specific. You'll never get to uncover something which is hidden otherwise. That requires a human to human contact. So even at volume, if you cannot do all your interviews, at least do a few sample, and that will do the magic. Now, once you've got all this data, we've still not decided and agreed on what is the churn reason. Was it that first feedback that I spotted? Or was it that product adoption that was the problem? Or was it that something that I unearthed during this interview? And again, interviews can also have personality traits because again, they're humans, right? So you'll have to, not every interview will be identical. So you'll have to use your human interaction skills to understand, what feedback to take, what not to take, and sort of, work with that. And
yeah, that's what Sai Bharat has also said. He says that when they open up, conversations move much freely, and for greater surprise, they do end up telling us all the bad things they were putting up with, just because they were too nice to say it upfront, thus helping us understand that we should perhaps not take all conversations on face value.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Great. So thank you, Sai Bharat. What timely comment from you. I think probably you timed it before I did. So so this one's already shared by you. We should have you doing the webinar as well in some of the future ones. Thanks for sharing. Now, but we still have to make a consensus, and this is where we sit down as a team. And let's talk about who all should be part of the team here, and then discuss all of these inputs, and then take a call as to why this customer really churned, and then which category should we really put him in, put him or her in, and should this customer belong to more than one category? And that could be an open conversation. And frankly, that is a very, very broader topic, so I'll not get into that, but that is a constant thing which will come up as you will sit down and discuss. But Anu, you want to talk about this conversation, especially what you've learned, and whenever we've done those.
Yeah, I think all these kind of meetings internally at CSP were very interesting because.
So let's. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but let's start by who all typically participates here.
Here we usually get the participation from product marketing team, from sales team, CS team, and of course the support team.
But the first churn analysis that we do, eventually the feedback goes everywhere. The first churn analysis, who all will sit down in that meeting? So that is primarily, yeah.
CS and support, primarily.
Yes, support, and typically the product manager as well. Again, it depends on how large your organization is. When we do it, we do bring in the product manager as well. Hey, Anu, you there? I think
Yes,
Anu.
I am here.
You're back. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, you're back. Go ahead.
Yep. So the first level of analysis is always done by more of a customer and product team. But later, if we unearth something that was like examples of probably the non-ICP customers, that okay, they were asking something which is not even there in our 6 months roadmap. So the question arises then: are we missing something on the product, or more is these kind of a customer is really something that we are not really building the product for? So then I think the second level of analysis usually goes on with the sales team, that what was discussed while doing the sale. Are we even selling it to the right kind of a customers? So
yeah, and I mean, like a lot of time this debate, whenever it comes up, every customer success manager or management should get a veto in saying that whether we should sell to this customer or not. And because customer success manager already knows that whether we can make this customer successful or not. And I think that is why the veto is important, but that is up for debate, and how we eventually do that. But that is a very, very powerful sort of stand, because when you're committing to delivering success and almost guaranteeing success there. So this review also involves, just for clarity, so also bring in the onboarding manager here for that particular account. Again, you don't have to bring in all onboarding manager, all customer success managers. I'm talking about if you're analyzing, let's say for churn for account A1, that whoever was the onboarding manager for account A1, whoever was the customer success manager for account A1, and whoever was, if there is a renewal manager or an account manager that you have, I'm talking about post sales. Sometimes if you've got high ARPA customers, you will have an account manager, renewal manager as well. Typically seen if you've got customers paying you more than $100,000 to a multi-million-dollar sort of a range. And if that customer's churn, usually you'll have the entire management and the CEO sitting in that meeting if at all that happens. And there'll not be just one meeting. And of course, the meeting needs to be concluded not just by categorization, but how can we prevent this in the future? What can we learn from here? And that takes us to the next piece of applying that learning. What all have we learned? And for example,
before we move in, there's another question.
Okay, sure.
Previous slide. Sai Bharat asks, wouldn't the discussion stakeholders be decided based upon when the customers churn? What if they churn post ALTV? Sales or onboarding managers might not have much to contribute in this conversation.
Sorry, I'm just still taking the question. Wouldn't discussion stakeholders be decided based on when the customer churns? Sai Bharat, yes, you're right. I mean, like if the customer is churning, let's say 3 years after the onboarding was done, then yes, the onboarding is fairly irrelevant at that point in time. Yes, you're spot on there. But if a customer churns soon enough, majority of the churn happens in the first year. First 90 days is the first majority, and the second majority is the first renewal cycle, assuming it's an annual sale that we're talking about here, or annual renewal cycle we are talking about, is the first annual renewal. After a customer is renewed for the first year, then it's unlikely to churn for many years, provided, as the customer matures, your product is also maturing. That usually and typically is the case. But yeah, you're right to apply that context. I will fully agree. I see a comment from Dheeraj as well, which I missed. First year analysis done based on health score calculator of 4 pillars: utilization, support, financial, and customer satisfaction. Yes, and I think that's just not just churn analysis can be done based on that, but those are also your 4 pillars of where you should be getting your signals and triggers. So for example, if I noticed that there was a particular module that they'd not adopted, and not just one customer, but let's say across multiple churned customer, you're saying every time a customer is not adopting this module, this leads to churn, right? Not adopting a particular module leads to churn. That means that module is more important than the rest of the modules, or more necessary, or more important, more relevant, has a stronger correlation with churn than or retention than the rest of the modules. And hence, it will absolutely make sense to, can we set up a risk alert? Can we set up an alert if this module is not getting used in the last 10 days, 30 days, 90 days, whatever whatever that module and the timeline makes sense for you, we call it look back period. Should we just alert the customer success manager, just trigger an entire playbook, train the customer on this module? It should automatically train that, and you should be able to take all that learning and convert it into be data driven, deploy automation on top, and use and convert those learnings into alerts connected to practices and processes and playbooks. And then once that, for any time in future, for any customer, if that module is not getting used for, let's say, over 60 days, 90 days, a trigger comes in which auto starts that particular playbook or creates a task for customer success manager to train, or even set up even automated interventions saying, hey, you've not been using this. Why don't we set up a meeting, or here is a guide, and here are the reasons why you should do that, and nudge the customer towards it. And if the automation is still failing to have that customer adopt that platform, it should eventually fall back on the customer success manager to then provide a human or a guided intervention for that. Anu, what do you say about applying some of these learnings? And if you've got more examples you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the most important part of churn analysis, where you put where you make sure that you are not committing the same mistakes again with other customers. So it's like taking your churn analysis to make sure Now you are taking your proactive actions as from the customer success angle. Let it be, as you mentioned, Puneet, let it be setting it in the form of an alert, or a proactive QBRs with the right stakeholders, or planning a certain kind of a check on what, if as per their use cases, are they consuming the right amount of modules or right amount of features, am I touch basing right, with the right amount. So all this leads to, I think, the factors. And it's not just a one time action. I think with every churn you'll have to reevaluate, that okay, am I still missing on any alert, then probably this is the time we should add one more, or change our configuration a bit. Yeah.
and and not just around, some of these, and these can come from so many angles. Like, were there too many support tickets, like we discussed, or too little support tickets? Interestingly, everybody knows too many support tickets is bad, but nobody talks about what if there are no support tickets. That
Means
is
probably
also
they are
bad.
not using the platform at
Not
all.
at
They're
all.
not even trying out new things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So see, in the subscription economy that we live in, okay, silence is not good. Even in the support tickets. So 0 support tickets, let's say over a quarter, not good. That means no new user. They've not tried a new feature. They have they're not playing around enough, and probably are not even logging enough. And you'll sort of see all of those pieces in product adoption. In the reactive support world, ignorance is bliss. Silence was great, and that is why I think the entire reason for being proactive, and that is why you want to convert the same support data into a proactive alert, so that you can intervene if there is no sort of engagement there. Similarly, financial alerts: is the MRR going up or is the MRR going down? If the MRR has decreased, then give me an alert. What's going on? Somebody needs to investigate, because over time, sometimes customers just don't drop off and churn. They just slowly taper off over time, the first contract, and then they eventually go away. They might be moving out team by team, and that could be, that might offer you some runway to probably provide interventions and de-risk the account or save the account and bring them back from the dead. On the other hand, there could be engagement alerts. So I saw one of the comments from Dheeraj earlier, where he's talking about how should we calculate relationship score. So CSAT and NPS, I think CSAT makes sense for support, but support tools are good at it. There's nothing against CSAT. NPS, unfortunately, the problem with NPS is, I think it's a great score when you have to compare yourself with other peers in the industry. But the problem with NPS is, first of all, only 2, 3, 5% of the customers will ever give you an NPS score. So we end up extrapolating that over 95% of the customers who have never even provided us an NPS. Then second, NPS is not a leading indicator. It's a lagging indicator. That means a leading indicator should give you an alert even before they become a detractor. You see my point? So every time, whenever you think of alert, you think of it as a leading indicator. See, the best alert, which is going to be guaranteed to tell you this account is going to churn, is when the customer, let's say, sends you a request saying, please cancel my account. Right? But it's already too late. What am I going to do with that alert? What you need is an alert which can give you a warning so that you have enough time to proactively intervene, and there is enough runway for you to fix the problems and deliver value and showcase value, what was promised, that they never become a detractor in the first place. Again, I think they don't become detractor and immediately leave or something like that, but it still is a lagging indicator. There are far better leading indicator than like product adoption. But specifically on your relationship point, Dheeraj, relationship scores, I think, can be best measured by how many touch points you're having. For example, every support ticket is also a touch point, is what we believe in. So it's a good relationship building opportunity. Of course, email sent is there, but we also want you to even measure email received. Are you receiving at least one email every 30 days, for example, is an amazing alert. And whenever you've not received even a single email, no matter what the agenda is, no matter how good or bad that email is, that itself, that silence again is deafening, is not good, and should be for something to just make sure that everything is right, and should be a cause for you to take notice, especially in a portfolio of, let's say, 100 accounts. You don't want to miss out on one of those pieces. So that's how we look at relationships there.
Puneet, Zita has a good comment. She says that client health index is a great way to identify churn ahead of time.
Awesome. And let's dive into all of that. But do I have, and by the way, I'm loving all these comments. I think this is wonderful. Thanks for all the engagement and keep them coming. But now tell me, how many of you are thinking about this question? So see, we went through this entire cycle. We went through feedback and analytics, interview. We understood, what is leading to churn, right? And then we said, all right, all these things are leading to churn. Now let me go ahead and set up some sort of alerts so that I can proactively intervene. Now, a lot of you probably come from engineering background or at least engineering mindsets. How many of you are thinking, why the hell can not the system do some self-learning? We don't live in system of records world anymore. We don't live in automation world anymore, which is the world that we live in today. We live in the world of artificial intelligence. When Netflix already knows, what I will like, when Spotify already knows, which song to play next, and I enjoy them. I'm a sucker for music. I enjoy Spotify, pretty much most of my day. So why can't customer success platform figure this all out? Why am I still setting up these alerts manually, and that too reactively? Right? There you go. I'm okay. I've got 2 yeses. Who else is curious too? So this is the era where, we're proud to talk about, and this is not the topic. If you want to see how we do this, you want to check out one of the previous webinars that we did from last week, and you'll find it in the webinar section. Or of course, if you are interested, you can sign up for a demo and stuff. But primarily, we are taking away this entire rule engine approach and replacing it with AI. So you can add those rules, but you don't have to add those rules. AI automatically learns from, okay, this account churned. Let me go and look at, what led to churn. This account renewed. Let me learn what product adoption, what customer engagement, how many QBRs, how many trainings led to this account being renewed, and then starts to make recommendations. So recommendations to customer success managers, literally saying that, hey, this account, I think you should train this particular account, maybe this particular persona on this particular module to ensure that their churn probability reduces by 60% and unlocks so many dollars worth of value in lifetime value. It literally is as smart as that. And this is live with so many of our customers today. So, this is, I'm not talking future here, okay, guys, I'm talking about what we deliver today. Okay, so this was a little marketing piece on slipping in customer success box. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to let you, learn about it offline, and we'll stick to the topic. But now I'm going to pass it back to Anu to actually showcase how we do this entire analysis. And of course, we do dog food, so we use customer success box itself to do churn analysis. Every time we have to do, or we obviously, this is how our customers use as well. We are going to, I'm going to pass it to Anu to let her walk you through an entire churn analysis process and give you a feeler for that. Anu, I'm going to, I think I'll have to stop share, and probably you should be able to share your screen.
I think I can.
Oliver, if you're talking about the AI part, the demo, there are enough screenshots in the previous webinar that we've done, or feel free to sign up for a demo and we'll sort of, work with you at an individual level. Again, just sticking to the agenda, and I don't want to steer this entire thing into a AI demo. Thanks for understanding, Oliver. Yeah, sure. And, now that so many of you are asking, we'll probably, Swagata, maybe in the follow-up email that we're going to send, if you can
I'll add that as well.
We'll add the link to the previous webinar as well.
Yes.
Lovely. Perfect.
Awesome.
Anu, I can see your screen. I'm sure everybody else can as well. So over to you.
Yep. Yeah. So guys, what we typically do is we have an internal automation that of course this screen that I'm presenting today is the CSV screen. It's kind of a demo account, and we for complete creating any processes is as to the just now we learned about our fair framework. What we have done internally is we put together a playbook or a series of actions that a customer success manager needs to do in the form of a playbook, which we call it like if can I name this is kind of a churn analysis playbook where I've written down what is it all about, like our framework of how we do it, and then put this down into different steps. Like, okay, as we said, first one is collecting the feedback, analyzing the product adoption data, scheduling an exit interview, then review with our internal team, plan out an action, and then make sure we complete this playbook. So these are the kind of steps that we internally follow, and all these tiles that you are able to see are the accounts. So automatically, whenever any customer churns, what happens is it gets inside this new
Swimlane.
step, a swim lane. Okay, and automatically at the moment, like this account is with Puneet example. Again, this is the demo data, guys. So the account is with Puneet, so he gets to know, he gets the notification. Okay, this account is churn. What are the things that he has to do? Okay, and as a leader, you always want to make sure that you put enough kind of a checklist for the people or your CSMs so that they can follow the checklist and we get to our output quickly. So as you can see, for the account Best Buy, you can see a series of tasks here, as in collecting the feedback. This task and a CSM gets like 4 days to complete these. To collect the feedback. In fact, we've even given them a details about what to usually check on the feedback, then what to analyze in the product adoption data, how to schedule an exit interview, when to set up and review internal meeting, and last but not the least, how we have distributed the action items among the teammates. And all these tasks gets generated for each of the customer who churns. Okay, so let's take an example. I'm just looking at the Best Buy as an example, and why don't we just go and check our fair framework on Best Buy. So, for example, if this is the account that has recently churned, I can check for the feedback. Okay, so if I look and find out, okay, this is the kind of all the conversations that has happened with the customers. We usually collect all these feedback in the form of a notes or a meetings notes. Okay, and if you see and analyze Best Buy, I can see a kind of a quarterly business review note, and you can see the feedback that was given by the customer was filters are not working on the reports, or there needs to be a better visibility on the lead pipeline. Assuming I've dug this up platform for the CRM thing, like considering you're selling the CRM software. So in that case, if you see, we've already received some kind of feedback on 9th of Feb. And if we dig a little deeper, if you can see in another feedback call that has happened, more of a health check call on 25th April, there was a feedback called management want better visibility with the reports and day-to-day tasks for the sales rep working well. So we got one good feedback, but a very negative feedback, which is also same with what they had shared earlier. So if you can analyze, we are getting multiple feedback from the same customer for the same problem, probably our reports are not working fine for them. Okay, so this is the way you kind of analyze data of a particular account. We can gather the feedback for a particular account. Okay, and then check for data part, as F was for feedback and A was for analyzing the data. So analyzing the data, if I see, I can see, okay, what was the usage of the account, and more specifically, what was the timeline, or I would say how the features were getting adopted into this account. So if you can see, there was a steady steady progress on steady features used. So all these shows that the total features used for the last 90 days. Okay, then you can also see one interesting standpoint here, that what was the how was the touch points with the customers. So with customer success box, we even integrate with your emails and meetings, and support tool. So that makes sure that, okay, how was the touch point with the customer in the last 90 days. And for this account, if you can see, there was no touch point at all. So we just got the touch point like some a week ago or something. Okay, so this is the way you analyze more of a touch point data or active user data, total features data, and the overall consumption of the customer. Not just this, but I think you, as we were talking about this module adoption, you can also see that that they were able to do they were able to successfully use some modules, as in they were able to use this data import. Okay, all these milestones more or less tells us that, okay, were they using, have they adopted this particular module or not. Okay, and this blue dot signifies that, okay, they have adopted to this particular module. And one of this you can see this particular milestone, which is not green, which means they've never marked a deal one with the software. So all these two modules were not were not adopted by the customer, and few modules were adopted. So this is where you kind of analyze the data for a particular customer in CSP. And nonetheless, you can also check if at all was system telling us something about this account. Like you can see, okay, were there any alerts that were open, were there any kind of a proactive notification that system was throwing, but we failed to kind of a check on them. So yeah, all this is, I think this is one of the way you can analyze the data effectively in CSBox. Yeah. And of course, then we move to scheduling the extended interviews, and you can also check and go on to create tasks, even though the customer has churned, but create tasks while we wrap up our meeting internally. You can always go ahead and create tasks for your sales team or your implementation team, or whatever you've agreed that what works and what not works. So you can always go and like create a task, like, okay, now that our reporting probably is something that is leading to the churn, probably we should be working more on the reporting part, working on reporting. And I can have this task created for my product manager. Okay. Anything, Puneet, that you would like to add?
No, I think this is great. So I know we are running over time, so I will not hold anyone back further. So guys, thank you so much for sticking around. I know some of you had to leave at the top of the hour, so that's okay. Hopefully you'll get to hear this latter part in the recording once we share. I am going to be sharing a quick survey. I think I figured that part out. So just so that you guys can leave us some feedback, and you're welcome to check out more detail on the platform. This was a very quick sort of a view of the process, not really a demonstration of the platform.
Puneet, before we wrap up, there was a question from Sai Bharat, which I had promised.
Sure, absolutely.
He asked, as a CSM, how can we help better the company culture overall?
So I think, so there are two parts to it. I think don't keep the CS knowledge, the understanding of your customers, whether they are pains, whether they are celebrations, make them and share it with the entire team. And that is how I think you'll sort of involve the entire team. And that is what will sort of start the culture of owning CS across the organization and not just staying limited to just the customer success. I hope if I understood your question right, this made sense. But yeah, that's all that I have to add for now. And Anu, can you initiate the
Poll?
The poll? I've added the poll. I'm unfortunately not able to find my panel. Hey guys, sometimes tech is still challenging to figure out, I guess. Webinar has a slightly different interface to the regular Zoom. Probably that's the reason. Okay, I think I found it. Okay, got it. So so I've added a couple of questions. So if you guys can vote before you leave, and that's about it. Was good having you. We are planning to sort of keep these webinars coming to you at least once every month, and over time we'll sort of try to increase the frequency depending on how we keep getting those participations and how much time we can make. But I think I love these, and I keep enjoying them more and more. And every time I think I do these, I always learn more. So thank you so much for participating. A lot of votes are coming in. Thank you so much. I think everybody found the webinar valuable. So that is a very good encouragement. That sort of definitely tells us to do more of these. And so many of you now, you want to go back and plan and propose to do churn analysis. I already find about 29% of you who already do churn analysis. I think that's great. If there's anything you guys want to add and share, please do that. Otherwise, for those of you who voted, I think it's you have rest of the good day and good evening, depending on wherever you're joining from. So thank you so much for joining, and look out for email from us with the recording. Yes. And also look out for invitations for more webinars.
Yeah. Before we went, we got a lovely feedback. So I will just say Gaurav is very happy, and he says that even the audience interaction is elite. You guys are building an amazing platform in form of CS.
Thank you, Gaurav. Very encouraging. So nice of you to use those kind words. Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Gaurav, Oliver, Krishna,
Siddharth,
Sai Bharat, Zita. I think so many of you have participated and kept this conversation alive. Yes. Otherwise, some of those webinars are very difficult to, it feels like you're talking to yourself. But this was amazing. Okay. Do join us again when we announce the next one, hopefully next month.
We'll do soon.
Lovely. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye. Bye, Suman, Anjana, Divyanshu. Thank you. Bye. Signing off, guys. Bye.
Bye.